Joined in the studio this half hour by Steve Millington. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Bill Colley with you as well on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. There's a story that I happened to see yesterday on the AP wire that says the debates that would be scheduled between our candidates for Congress and U.S. Senate are being scrapped this year because they could find no serious evidence the Democrats were actually running for office other than filing.
Yeah, and when we talk about, we do have a big debate next Monday night, but the interesting thing about debates on a local level and at the House and Senate races, um, number one, we got to have issues that we can debate about, and number two, that only works if we have a kind of a close race, and then the underdog always wants to have the debate because this everybody has this idea, this perception that this is my chance to knock them down off their pedestal. I can score a few points here and bolster my ratings in the polls and I'll do better. Well, if I'm way ahead, and I haven't seen any polls in 2 weeks on Idaho races, but last time I checked, Crapo was like at 80%, and Mike Simpson was in the high 70s. And if I'm that far ahead in the polls, why do I want to have a debate? Because that's a situation where I have lots to lose and nothing to gain. And the challengers in both of those races are wonderful people, but they're not going to be viable long-term competitors either. And so, to have a debate, all I do is lend some credibility to their position, and this is kind of a war, and I don't, take no prisoners.
I had to laugh this morning. The Clown College graduate who's running against Raul Labrador is quoted in the Statesman. I mean, after all, he doesn't have any money and he hasn't run any campaign, but the newspaper's going to try to
Pushing,
promote him.
yeah.
And he's quoted as saying that he will be the absolute opposite of Labrador in everything he does. And I thought, okay, is he talking backwards or is he walking backwards?
Yeah.
Or and in that district, I can't see that flying.
Well, and the first thing we want to do is we want to say we want to position ourselves as a challenger in these big races like that as the opposite of the incumbent. Now, one thing you do have to remember is that the position of incumbent has a lot of tremendous power and position associated with it. You have got to prove or attempt to prove that the incumbency has not benefited any of the constituency. And boy, that takes an awful lot of work to get that done. You just can't hardly get it done.
Well, we were talking off air about Grant Lobes, and we're expecting him perhaps this morning, but he has said before that politics is nothing more than a job interview when you're running for office.
In many respects, that's exactly what it is. You want to put your very best profile and your best presentations forward, and sometimes you get questions that you can answer and enhance your position, but most people don't even know the right questions to ask, and I say that kind of sheepishly, but they don't. And so in many situations, we don't really know what it is we want to hit them up with. So now, 4 years ago, I think we had a lot of debates in the primary election because Mike Simpson had a strong challenge from Brian Smith, and so they had two or three debates around the state. One was hosted here in Twin Falls. It was reasonably well attended, but it didn't go anywhere. And the moderator didn't know exactly the right questions to ask or how to couch them just to try to get the
Well, media talks a good game about. They'll say, well, candidate so and so's position on this. I don't know any voters out there who actually read position papers,
I don't either.
and the other part of this is a lot of people in media don't.
Well, let me back up. I read position papers, but I am not what you'd consider to be part of the mainstream people out there.
Right.
A
Your
lot of
role is a little different.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm a little goofy because all I do is read political stuff all day, every day. And even at that, I'm not very astute. But most people don't want to get into that depth, that detail. And so, and the media would like to think that um, around here, we'd have to say primarily it's our printed media because the television stations and stuff, it, you get 15 minutes twice a day, and that's it. They don't have a special news program or news show or whatever. If you do watch PBS once in a while, they will have a little bit more in-depth interviews and discussions and so forth. But PBS is not a major event for most people. They just oh yeah, PBS.
Yeah, you got to sit through the
I
bird documentaries before you
well,
get to the
I
actual.
I watched a real good show on hiking Idaho's mountains on PBS. They don't realize that they have anything else out there. So having a debate on a state basis for candidates for House and Senate,
Hey,
you will see that happen when we have if we had an open seat and we were having a real fight for a position, then you might see something like that
I've
happen.
seen those hiking documentaries before. And now we pause for a moment to listen to the call of the whippoorwill.
Yeah,
And then there's a long pause. And then, and Maggie, my dog, enjoys the walk through the woods and sniffing the truffles. We've got more with Steve Millington coming up in just a moment. It's 54. It's 840 on KLIX. We've got more coming up with Steve Millington in just a moment. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. I just want to remind folks later this week when we have some rain move in, our daytime highs are only going to be in the 50s. So, yes, you need to fire up that furnace to find out if it's working, if you haven't done it already. And if it's not working well or not working at all, give the pros a call at Ramsey Heating and Electric. And the team at Ramsey's, by the way, we should point out, they're out in Burley. They'll come out and get the job done right the first time. And it's problem-free, crowsy winters that you'll find at Ramsey Heating and Electric. They're at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. The telephone number, 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Steve Millington, we have a lot of news going on in the polls this morning. I looked at the 538 website, which supposedly Nate Silver, the guy who runs that, can really pick an election.
right.
And about a month ago, 80% chance they said of Hillary Clinton becoming the next president. Today it's a 59% chance of Hillary becoming the next president. So it's beginning to sound as if there might be some sort of trajectory going on here with the Trump campaign.
Now, for callers who might want to do a little bit of research, when we say the 538 polling, that's not number 5, number 38. You spell it out, 538.com, I think it is.
Right, I think so.
Yeah. So you have to spell out the words. Don't put in the numeric numbers. It's not a 5 and a 3 and an 8. It's just spell it out, 538. And he has real good stuff and always has had. In addition to which, he has some real good commentary and op-ed pieces that he posts along with his polling. A couple of things about polls. Um, this morning on Real Clear Politics, they had a graph in there that showed the polls, and Real Clear Politics takes all the polls and kind of averages them out and says, okay, here's the composite index of what we're looking at. In early August, about a month ago now, Hillary Clinton was ahead like 48-40. Now it could have been 47-41. The graph wasn't that large, but she had a comfortable 6 or 7 point lead in early August. This morning, Real Clear Politics, she had 1%. 1% lead. And so you look at that and you say, okay, what has happened in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks that has caused her numbers to change so dramatically? And by the way, the polls that we were looking at this morning on the printouts, that was polling prior to the events in New York and New Jersey and Minnesota. So I think we'll see some changes in that when the polls come out later this week. Um, those, it would be a stroke of genius if Trump could just kind of keep pulling this thing off, slow and steady, the tortoise and the hare routine, and he just keeps pecking away a little bit here and a little bit here and a little bit here, and eventually knocks that down. Now, one of the things we're going to see happen, I think, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, the Democrats are becoming very concerned. They're becoming almost desperate, and so we're going to see all kinds of untruth, twisted, distorted, anything to deflect away from Donald Trump's growth in the voter base. And as when we see those kinds of things, the first thing you want to do is ask yourself, is this fact or is this distortion? Because they are going to distort and deflect and do everything they can because they become has suddenly become desperate.
Right. It'll be along the lines of Donald Trump dissects dogs in his attic.
Yeah.
And paid for by the committee to re-elect Hillary or
One of the
elect Hillary.
one of the things that I saw this morning on Drudge, I think it was Drudge, was Bush 41, the senior father Bush. I'm not voting for Hillary. Well, that's not exactly what he said, and it he was talking to a friend or a confidant, and they went public with it. Now we don't know that he did not make that statement in a public a place or in a public pronouncement. Someone was just having a conversation with him, and
Well,
and distorted the thing.
if Texas flips by one vote, I'll be concerned, but otherwise,
Yeah.
I don't think there's much to.
So the thing that we got to start watching here is that the Democrats see this gap narrowing down. I mean, 1% at this point is that's a win for Trump.
We have a caller with us, and before we get to the caller, just a quick note too. There was a story out this morning in one of the national papers. Trump is now polling better than expected with Latinos. So there you have it. Caller, you're on the air on KLIX. Good morning. All right, we'll
Whoops.
try. We'll try line two if we have an opportunity. Caller, got to be patient. Let's see if we can get someone back up on the air here. You're up next on Top Story. Steve Millington and Bill Colley.
Yeah, good morning. Hey, I've got a lot of people that I hear telling me, well, we don't need to vote because Idaho goes Republican anyway, and we don't like either candidate, or we're not going to vote. You know what? We need to stay strong, a strong Republican Party, and with all the people moving in here from California and all that stuff, we need to make a statement. And if you don't vote, you don't complain to me and don't talk to me about it anymore.
That's outstanding. I get that same thing so many times. Well, I'm not really happy with this, and I'm not really happy. I'm just not going to vote at all. And I just say, wait a minute. Not voting at all is the worst possible option when you start talking about those kinds of things uh, concerning voting for presidential candidate. You got to get out and vote. You cannot sit on the sidelines. There was an interesting article this morning. I think it was in National Review. Um, can't think of
Victor Davis Hanson.
That's the guy, Davis Hanson. Yeah, you just held up your copy. You know, it's interesting. I read that same article this morning. We're spending too much time on the radio together. You know, one of the things he said was, by not voting, you're committing political suicide. And this is a great article. I don't remember where I get it. It's on National Review online, and he talks about the obstructions and how the media in particular, they attacked McCain in '08 and turned him into some kind of a confused septuagenarian. That's an old person for those of you who may not. Yeah, including things like he wasn't sure how many mansions he owned. And then they took on Mitt Romney and they attacked him and made him look goofy and nicknamed him Richie Rich. Well, this is as critical an issue this year as in '08 and 12 because we're going to see some changes. He mentions in here changes to Supreme Court rulings
Mhm.
and how big an issue that's going to be. And uh, our caller's right on. We cannot sit home. You have to be engaged. I've got lots of people who call me and say, well, Trump has made me mad and I just can't vote for him. And I said, you don't have a choice. You have to get past some of the little idiosyncrasies and look at the bigger picture and say to yourself, do I really want these answers or do I want these answers?
We have another caller with
Oh,
us.
good.
Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Steve Millington and Bill Colley on KLIX.
You know something? 94 million people in America, registered voters, didn't vote in the last election. 54 million were Christians. 94 million people didn't vote. I just say to myself, what are these people thinking? And when you think of a Christian, do you not think of a person that says that they're responsible? And I can always go back to the fact that they think that Christ is going to come here and bail them out. In fact, I ran into a guy Saturday that believed that very thing, and he was a Christian. And it just amazes me how they think that way. I don't know. Now, they've thrown everything at Trump they can think of, and nothing's really stuck. I don't know. I just, again, this debate that's coming up is coming up Monday. If Trump does well in this first debate and see, for instance, maybe she has a coughing fit, maybe she maybe she accidentally passes out even or something. I don't know.
That's Christ coming and saving us if that happens.
That's right. Yeah. Let it would be nice if she. No, I wouldn't either. Let's not even go there. But and I don't think we need to. That the key thing. Let's remember 4 years ago, Romney stomped Obama in that debate, but for some reason he took his foot off the pedal between that first debate and the end of the race. I don't think that Trump is going to make that kind of a mistake, and I hope, I really hope that his advisors, his handlers, are keying him up. I mean, when we get in that airplane and close those doors, there's only one thing we're talking about, and that is, by the way, you're going to read the teleprompter at our next news conference. Don't go off script. Stay on the teleprompter. And now let's talk about debate issues. We think that they will ask this question, and what's your response? And then they need to have somebody like me in there who can just jump up and say, "That's stupid, fella. What are you thinking?" So that he gets the coaching that says this is the answer that is going to sound best and look best and is actually most correct. I had a good friend years ago who said there are people who will tell lies when the truth actually sounds better, makes more sense. So let's stay on task. Let's stay with the correct, proper approach, and let's not go off script.
There's a great column today. We'll get to a caller in just a second, but a great column today as well from Pat Buchanan, and it's titled "Trump and the Press: A Death Struggle," which might be a whole conversation alone tomorrow morning. Got about 5 minutes before 9 o'clock. Caller, you're up next on KLIX. Go ahead.
Steve, we've been listening to this misogynistic, oh, poor little lady, look, she's weak. Oh, Hillary's weak. Oh, the lady needs to be sleeping in her house, taking care of, the grandkids and all this. That is so misogynistic. It's unreal.
Well, it's always nice to get, by the way, the intelligent Democrat liberal response on the.
Well, and part of the thing is that the get out of jail free card that the Clinton campaign is getting every day from the media. This idea, CNN jumped all over the quote racial profiling. Well, I looked at a report on Dredge this morning. I watched a clip on television, and nowhere did Trump use the term racial profiling.
But if the president says, which he said yesterday, if you see something, say something, that's requires profiling.
That's profiling. And what Trump said was, don't sit idly by and then say, oh my goodness, how does it happen? Raise some questions. And I'm sorry, but that is profiling. Ben Carson, in an interview last night, he said, if I walk into a room and they say, look out for the guy who's 7 feet tall with green eyes. So when I get in the room, am I going to look for the guy who is 6 feet tall with blue eyes? No, I'm going to look for the guy who is 7 feet tall. And he said, yes, that is profiling. But that is what all of us do almost instinctively in our daily reactions. We look, we don't. We're not being necessarily.
It's a survival skill.
It's kind of a survival skill, exactly. And is it wrong? No. Let's just look at it. But the media wants to so badly to destroy Trump that they are distorting every single thing he says.
When the police say be aware of your surroundings, if you're shopping late at the mall and you come out in the parking lot and you see a guy skulking around some of the automobiles, profiling says, hey, danger, danger, danger.
That's right. This isn't correct. This isn't right. What's going on here? What's going on here? And we are no longer living in a free zone. Those things could happen in Twin Falls just as easily as they could happen anywhere else in the world. We have to be aware of our surroundings. And I'm sorry, I guess we call that profiling.
Yeah, St. Cloud is almost an identical city, and it's happened there now. We've got to wrap up. Any interesting things we should know about before you go?
Next Monday, we have debates. I think Fox is going to host them. I'm not sure. But next Monday, we have debates, and that'll be interesting. We want to keep an eye on how well does Trump handle himself. This is going to be a real major test.
And if not a coughing fit, perhaps something along the lines of that.
And all of us, the basket of deplorables
yes.
will be delighted to watch this thing.
Buy your T-shirt now.
Yes.
We've got a break for news coming up in just a moment. Top story, one more hour of the program still ahead. Would like to thank Steve Millington, chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, for dropping by. You may see him a couple of days next week, in fact.
I think that's the plan. As last time I checked my calendar.
Perhaps Monday and Tuesday.
All day, every day.
We've got more on the way after news.
Thanks.